How long have small and medium-sized businesses in this country been screaming out for workers? When did it start, do you think? Well before the last election, through most of 2021, maybe the end of 2020. The situation was chronic then. And now, how bad is it? Well, KPMG says that last month, some 480,000 positions were vacant. Almost 500,000. Retail and hospitality businesses have been shutting their doors for entire days during the week, and even when they can open, they've had to limit the space for service because there aren't enough staff to do the job. And you know the story. You get out there, you hear what's going on. It's been going on for 2 years. But what has the Prime Minister done every day now for 7 days? Held these boring press conferences about what a backbencher did when he led the country in 2020 and 2021. He was back at it today. It was day 8.
I would have thought that Australians are concerned that this could ever occur. There's a basic fundamental weakness in checks and balances. If no one knows who the minister is, then how can they be held to account for decisions which are made? That's why there's a need in a parliamentary democracy and in our Westminster system of cabinet government for cabinet to be aware, let alone the Australian people, to be aware of who is responsible for what at any particular time.
Oh, déjà vu. Same sentences, same key words for 8 long days. Now, for a Prime Minister, he still makes a great opposition leader, don't you reckon? Still obsessing over the former Prime Minister. And yet today, what does the average Aussie think about? What are they concerned about? They'll be filling up their tank with petrol and cursing the cost. Their hideously expensive power bill is stuck on their fridge with a magnet like a police warrant. And they're working out how they can find the money to pay their higher mortgage payment. That is real life in 2022. We are over the backbencher. And small business is still screaming out for workers. Today, New South Wales Liberal Treasurer Matt Keane weighed into the worker shortage crisis. He wrote in The Australian, the Commonwealth doesn't need to wait for a job summit. It doesn't need to ask the unions for permission. It doesn't need to wait for an October federal budget. It needs to make the call to start stamping passports today. Matt Keane is spot on. We have at least 60,000 foreign workers waiting for that stamp this very day who can't get their visas processed. Oh, but no, we won't do much about that today. Labor can't move that quickly. That's not what they do, especially when the unions are in their ear seeking to limit immigrant worker numbers. You see, it's all about skilling now. Not welcoming in workers with their hands up ready to work. No. Let's have a skills summit. And not this week, Matt Keane, not that quick. The government has more politicking to do. Albo is still obsessed with the backbencher for Cook. In fact, today, Albo kept alive the possibility of initiating another investigation into those legal acts.
Quite clearly, there are real questions to be answered here. There is a question of legality. Now, there hasn't been a suggestion of illegality, but there have been questions raised about how this could occur, how it fits in with the conventions and the normal accountability mechanisms and checks and balances that are there in our parliamentary democracy. And they are matters that need to be considered. I'll await and consider the advice properly.
We were told on Thursday that today would be the day that we'd all hear what the Solicitor General found in relation to Scott Morrison's multiple ministries. But no, too quick for Albo. He doesn't work that quickly. Remember when the former Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, moved mountains to create JobKeeper, an undisputed winning measure to save the economy at the height of the pandemic? Remember that? The government also moved at lightning speed to shift tens of thousands of public servants into the Human Services Department to make it happen and make it happen fast. And it worked. Is that not what the current Prime Minister should be doing today inside the Immigration Department? Or does he just sit back and wait for his fancy jobs talk fest next month? Well, we know the answer to that. Today, no immediate action. We won't be sending tens of thousands of public servants in to stamp those passports, which could be done immediately. No heeding Matt Kean's advice. It was all roads lead to the Job Summit.
You advance the country when there's more collaboration. And I know that the New South Wales Premier, along with all the other premiers, have all accepted the invitation. I look forward to working with them constructively. You're not going to have a summit on Thursday and Friday and wake up on Saturday and there are no skill shortages. That's not what's going to happen. But what you will do is to provide policy parameters, both in terms of training Australians. I make no apologies for saying that migration is part of the solution, but it's not the only part.
Oh, I wish one of those journalists at that press club or at that press conference today could have taken him to bits on that. So we widen the committee. We don't just need a Prime Minister to make these decisions today, not a cabinet. We need the biggest committee we can find to try and fill the gaps in the workforce. He just doesn't get it, this bloke. We have a jobs crisis. It's actually a workers' crisis, which requires fixing. Family businesses are suffering. Albanese is now running the government. He can make things happen fast if he wants to partially solve this problem and fast-track the visas of 60,000 workers, but not today. Not today. We're off to the Job Summit. Meanwhile, New South Wales is demanding in bold print that the PM should stamp passports today, not after the Job Summit. In his article, he even gave the PM tips, Matt Kean, as to how to fix the jobs drought. So too today, business leader Christine Holgate. She had her own advice on the crisis for government.
Actually, to be a heavy goods vehicle driver, you have to be highly experienced. You have to take 5 different tests. You have to have a license. We only have 3% of lorry drivers in the country as women. So there's a real opportunity to invest in education and training and for men and get a higher participation. And my concern is if you just answer with migration, what happens to the Australians who are here but don't have the skills? So I think this requires real long-term planning, partnering with universities and training, partnering with the government. And it's not a quick fix solution.
So the Prime Minister has been handed how to do this on a platter. Plenty of opportunities. He doesn't need a job summit. It's a jobs drought, which the OECD estimates is the second worst skills crisis in the developed world. That's how bad this is. If you had skin in this game, if your family's survival depended upon finding staff, you'd be as mad as hell right now that the new government won't move on this today. For all their promises, for all their plans, they're doing bugger all to solve the real issues facing this country. They'd rather manage a theatrical talk fest on jobs, conjure up a few mission statements next month as well, and pat themselves on the back at the end of it all with some smiley social media photographs to go with it. Meanwhile, business is burning. A real crisis is staring the Prime Minister in the face and he won't jump on it now. Oh, but I can guarantee that tomorrow we'll get another press conference. We'll get another big announcement about the backbenchers' legal acts, the Solicitor General's advice, and a new inquiry, of course. We've got to go and take this through until maybe the middle of next year. That's day 9 on the same political issue. He's obsessed, and not obsessed with what he should be obsessed by.